bodycon dress that has just a small turtleneck, using just this small fabric that I have left from the previous video I made. Guys, most of you were asking the name of this particular fabric. Is for the same person that I'm making this for, and this is just a small piece of her fabric that is left. And like I said, she's a small size, so I'm going to be making this bodycon dress for her. So the name of this fabric is Jersey Lycra. So that's the name of this fabric. This is what I'm going to be using to make this bodycon dress for her. The fabric is nice because I know when I've worked with a lot of stretchy fabric, and sometimes you can't even sew on them, but this is the first one I've sewed on and it came out really neat and it didn't bulk up on my sewing machine. Again, the name is Jersey Lycra. So I'm going to start her shoulder measurement. So basically the width I have here is just her hip measurement divided by 4. This fabric stretches both this side and then this side also. So, and it's very thick, so there's no need for me to add seam allowance here. So I'm just using her hip measurement divided by 4. That's the width here. So I'm going to go up to the shoulder now and insert her shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is going to be 7. Her shoulder measurement is 14, divided by 2 is 7. Mark 1 inch of shoulder slope, and then I'm going to come down. Guys, remember this is white, so I can't make the chalk too visible, but just follow along what I'm saying. 1 inch of shoulder, and I'm marking it on the wrong side. So come down here, insert her armhole here, which is basically 9 inches, right? Mark that here, and then also place her measurement so I can connect it in a straight line this way. Mark her armhole, like this, and then after that I'm going to insert her shoulder to her waistline, which is at 15, which I've already marked. Her shoulder to her hip, which is at 22. Guys, like I said, this person is on a smaller size, both in height and in width of her body, if that makes any sense, in the size of her body, sorry. So like she's small and she wants this dress to be short, so the dress is going to be about, let's say, 31 inches. So the bust I'm working with here is supposed to be 32, divided by 4 is going to be 8. And then the waist, coming down to the waist, her waist is going to be 28, divided by 4 is going to be 7. Mark that. Her hip, like I said, is just the width of this fabric here, divided by 4 is about 9.5 or so. So from here I'm going to connect it down to this point and then connect this to the bust. And then down here, what I'm going to do is to just remove 1 inch at the edge, because the width of the fabric at the hip is the same here. So remove about 1 inch down here like this and then connect it. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut all this part out. After that, I'm going to come in here, mark 3 inches of neckline, and then connect the shoulder slope to that 1 inch I marked before, and then go ahead and cut that out this way. And then guys, basically I'm drawing just her basic bodies without any seam allowance. That's just what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut off the neckline, come down here by 1 inch from the top, cut it out. So once I separate the front and the back, then I can go ahead and cut the front neckline a little bit lower. So this is okay for the back. So I'm going to take this one here as the back panel. The one at this first one here is going to be the back. So let me separate it and set it aside. So this one now is my front panel. I'm just going to come down from the tip here and mark 3 inches down, right? Mark 3 inches. So this is going to be my neckline here. Cut out 3 inches here. So this is the front and this is the back. And then by the armhole in front, I'm also going to do the same thing. Go in halfway through this armhole, which is going to be at 4.5 here. Bring it in a little bit by half an inch, connect it. Just like how we draw our basic bodies, and cut this off here. So guys, now that this is done, the next thing I'm going to do is just to go ahead and cut her sleeve. You see, I have her back and the front, and then the sleeve, since it's going to have a very short sleeve, and this is how I'm going to be folding all the edges. Like I said before, this fabric works fine, so all I have to do to fold the edge is just to fold it once like this and sew on it. If you want, you can zigzag the edge here, like hem it and sew it down, but even if you don't do it, it still stays because the thread doesn't run and it looks clean. So all you have to do is just to fold it half an inch to just fold this edge here. So that's what I did for the length of our clothes. Since this is just a leftover fabric and we're trying to make a dress out of it, I just added 1 inch to the length of her, the height, that's the length this way. And then so I'm going to use half an inch to join the shoulder and half an inch to just fold this edge away. But you can still do the same 1 inch for the bottom and half an inch for the top, and just use 1 inch to turn it up this way. It still doesn't matter whichever one you want to do. So now the same way is how I'm going to fold the edge of her sleeve. Just fold it once and that is it, because you don't want to start doing, not that you cannot fold it twice. With this fabric you can do that and it still feels soft and relaxed, but just for a better and a clean finish, I just like to just do one turning. So now to cut her sleeve, I'm just going to go ahead and mark 4 inches down from the top here, and then mark it straight across this way. Let me move this so that mark it straight across this way, and then mark a straight line across. Basically the length I'm working with for her sleeve is just, let's say you want the sleeve to be 5 inches, I added extra 1, so my sleeve is going to be 6 inches when I'm done. I added 1 inch to it, half an inch to join this top and half an inch to fold the edge, because I'm not using up to 1 inch to fold the edge. And then find halfway through this straight line that I just marked, which is 10 inches straight line. Halfway through that is going to be 5. So find where 5 is on this line, and then give it a curve below this way and a curve above, right? And then the next thing is to mark her sleeve width down here. So her sleeve width I'm working with should be about 6 inches. That's her sleeve width divided by 2. I'm not going to be adding seam allowance to this sleeve width because you want it fitted on her sleeve, or you can still add 1 inch. Just use whichever one. For the sleeve it doesn't matter, you can add 1 inch. If you don't want it to just look like a cuff and tight and be too tight by the sleeve, just add 1 inch and take away that 1 inch when you're done, right? You can add seam allowance is basically what I'm trying to say, because this time around is your sleeve, not that the fabric is too strong that it will serve as a cuff or tourniquet on your hand. It's just that if you don't want it to be discomforting is what I'm saying. So I'm going to cut this part out now, and then go ahead and cut from here all the way to the top like this. Just cut your basic sleeve, and then I'm going to go ahead now. So basically what I'm going to do now is just to take this to the sewing machine the way it is, open it up, join the shoulder to the shoulder, right? Join the shoulder to the shoulder, and then I'm going to insert my sleeve to it. So guys, you see this is it here now. All I have to do is just to take it. You see I've placed it together, the right and the right side, they are both facing each other. I'm going to just take it, go to the sewing machine, join the shoulder, take the sleeve, insert it here, one on each side. You see there are 2 of them here, one on each side, and then I'm going to close up the sides. Guys, I'm going to use even up to 1 inch of seam allowance here, and this dress will still fit her perfectly. So because it stretches a lot, I can take away 1 inch of seam allowance and this will still fit her, because of the type of fabric this is. And once I'm done and get to the bottom here, I'll just fold it facing up this way, and that's it. And then we'll come back and finish up the neckline. This is it now. I've joined everything. You see what the sleeve looks like, and then the body. Guys, one thing with this fabric is that you have to run your stitches twice, even for the sleeve. Each one I go back in and try to run my stitch twice. Each one I go back in, try to run the stitch twice, so that in case when you pull it, because when I'm sewing I don't pull the fabric, because if you pull it, it will start to fold. So I just leave it the way it is, and then go back in and run the stitch twice, so that even when it stretches, my stitch will not tear. Because one thing is that if you just run it once, when the fabric stretches, the next thing you hear is king, it will start breaking the thread. So you have to run it twice. Even inside of the cloth, I try to double stitch it. Just on the same seam, just run the stitch twice. So now that we've done that, the next thing is the neckline. This is what I'm using You see what I'm using here is like 4 inches, and then the opening here, it depends on you. This fabric stretches a lot, so it will definitely pass her head. So I'm confident with the 1 inch and 3 inches in front. So what I did is just to cut another what I have here is about because of how this fabric stretches, I have like basically run your thread, your stitch round the neckline of this top. Whatever you measured, you can subtract about 1 inch from it, and then close up your seam. Run it so that when you're sewing it, you can pull it. This is the only time I think you can be able to just pull it and sew it down, because if you use exactly this neckline and run it, you can do that, but I think when you finish it, you might have a gaping at the neck. But if you want the neck to fit exactly like what your neckline is supposed to be, you need to go ahead and use a smaller opening here, like subtract 1 inch from whatever your neckline here is, so that as you're sewing it, you can also be able to pull it while you sew on the thread. Because even if the fabric is stretching and the thread is not stretching, it will not pass your neck, it will not pass your head. So you want to stretch it as you're sewing. So in order to be able to stretch the fabric as you're sewing, you need to reduce the neckline, right? Reduce whatever you're using as the collar of this, so that you can be able to stretch it and sew at the same time, so that you can when you run your thread, you can still pass your head through it. Imagine if I use this neckline now and then just use exactly that, and then double stitch it, the thread doesn't stretch, so it will not pass my head when I'm done. So that's why you need to use a smaller one, so that you can be able to pull your thread and like stretch it as you're sewing. So I'm just going to take this the way it is now, put it on the neckline, right? Put it on the neckline like this and just sew it down all the way, double the way it is now. You see, it's folded on itself. It's going to be this way, and then I'm going to just take it, sew it inside out like this. And once I'm done, I'm going to fold the edge of my clothes, hem the inside, and that will be it. So I'll bring it back and show you guys what it looks like when I'm done. Here I've joined the neckline and then I've finished it. Guys, you see how I said I'll finish my sleeve? You see, I just folded it and then double stitched it, like one stitch on top of the other almost, just so that it doesn't tear, like the seam doesn't come loose. So, and then the same thing for the neckline. Once I finish joining the neckline together, and then I pull down the excess seam and just stitched it all the way around. But as I was stitching it, like I said before, I was pulling it just a little bit, just to make sure that this part will still fit someone's head. So you see there's a stitch holding it, and once you join it and it's still standing this way, once you finish sewing it round, it will stand and it will not look nice. It will be all over the place like this, almost like it's falling apart. But once you pull in that your excess seam inside, like your seam that you used to sew it, and then stitch on top of it, it will help. Once you pull it down, it will make this collar to stand. So that's basically how you do it. I did it all the way around on the neckline. Everything looks neat. If you see the inside, it looks neat. The same thing is what I did on the inside too. So you see, her dress is ready. And this is basically it here. This is the back. And yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.